As to the telephonoscope, well, actually, I should tell you first, take a step back and talk about the telephone. Now, I had a telephone myself. I was the first author to submit a typewritten manuscript of a novel for publication. Tom Sawyer in 1876. And I was also the first private citizen to have a telephone installed in his residence. Or one of the first, anyway. Although I used the telephone to some advantage, I used it and it abused me. I could not see that the average person would have much use for a telephone, or that a business would want to use one and deal with their customers in this informal way. So when a representative of Graham Bell's company came to me with the offer to invest in this company, I declined with thanks. He continued to pursue the matter, and I refused to listen. He talked about how great of a future the company would have and how many people would be using telephones, how much money I could make if I speculated in this prospect. But I was adamantine. He offered me hatfuls of stock for a moderate outlay of capital. I refused. So he left me and he approached some of my fellow citizens there in Hartford, Connecticut. And some of these inexperienced, foolish, reckless people did listen to him, and they invested in the telephone. Unfortunately, some of these people invested large sums of money, one man at least, his entire life savings. And shortly, they became fabulously wealthy. I had missed fire. I didn't invest. I made no money from the telephone. How was I to know that the telephone would become so popular, that every household would have a telephone in it? And as you know today, in the year 2019, every individual, it seems, has a telephone. And they carry it around with them everywhere they go. That device, that small rectangular device, thin, lightweight, has not only a telephone embedded in it, but a calculator, a compass, a calendar, a map, a memorandum book, a weather prophecy, and all sorts of things. Similarly, there's a tablet, same basic device, just bigger, a little thicker, a little heavier. Now, I find the tablet handy myself at times. I use it. But I would have you people of today know that tablet is not new. There's nothing new about a tablet. It was not invented in the 21st century, nor in the 20th century. My fellow scholars and I, in a one-room schoolhouse in Hannibal, Missouri, on the banks of the Mississippi River in the 1840s, we all had tablets. We call them slates. That's nothing. Thousands of years before that, Moses had a tablet. In fact, that illustrious shepherd had 2 tablets. Now, his attitude toward his tablets, I can relate to that. He got so confused and frustrated and irritated with those tablets, he raised them above his head and he smashed them down onto the rocks into smithereens and to flinders. I have felt the same way at times about some of this modern technology, trying to learn how to use it. But as has happened with me too, Moses went back and got replacements. He got new tablets. Now, speaking about Moses, I'd like to read to you now an excerpt from my book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Now, Huckleberry had been taken in by the widow Douglas, a nice old lady who took in this poor, homeless orphan as she wanted to raise him up, educate him, and get him a start on a better life for the future. Now, her motives were good. This is Huckleberry's description, his feelings about his situation. The widow, she cried over me and called me a poor lost lamb, and she called me a lot of other names too, but she never meant no harm by it. She put me in them new clothes again, and I couldn't do nothing but sweat and feel all cramped up. Well, then the old thing commenced again. The widow rung a bell for supper, and you had to come to time. When you got to the table, you couldn't go right to eating, but you had to wait for the widow to tuck down her head and grumble a little over the victuals, though there weren't really anything the matter with them. That is nothing, only everything was cooked by itself. In a barrel of odds and ends, it is different. Things get mixed up, and the juice kind of swaps around, and the things go better. After supper, she got out her book and learned me about Moses and the bulrushers, and I was in a sweat to find out all about him. But by and by, she let it out that Moses had been dead a considerable long time. So then, I didn't care no more about him because I don't take no stock in dead people. Well, enough about the telephone. As to the telephonoscope,